organisations are just underpinned by their volunteers. So to give back is a very important thing. It began in the mid-50s with about 6 women, and now, 65 years later, we now have around 27 members and 9 life members. 45 to 86. Some of the ladies have actually been working in this auxiliary for 30 years. They're just fabulous. Our main thing is our pudding making. So it started off in the 50s where they probably made about 12 puddings, and now we make around 2,000 puddings, taking costs out probably about $45,000 to support the Flying Doctor. We had a ball recently and that was just absolutely amazing. We held an auction and we made $44,000. Someone just walked up in the afternoon with a motorbike and said, "Would you like to auction this?" Yes, thank you ever so much. We actually have what they call a pig auction, which is a $250 meat voucher. So it first was auctioned at $4,000, put back in and out, and it made a total of $11,500 from this one small meat voucher. So people are amazingly generous. Since 1989, when we give them this year's donation, it will be $2 million. So the women have done an absolutely amazing job in that time. A great sense of pride and achievement.
Dubbo is the last major centre between really here and Broken Hill. So the first plane came in 99, and then in 2000 they did get a federal government grant to build the first hangar. That was really the beginning. The support group accumulated funds to be able to buy equipment for the planes, blood monitors and humicribs and things like that. The dental van opens into a fully equipped dental clinic. We've just approved funding from the support group to do a similar van as a general health clinic, and it will be invaluable to the people up north around Lightning Ridge, where GPs are just not readily available. We funded some non-emergency service vehicles. We free up the ambulance service for the emergency work. That sort of all led on to what we've got here in this tourist facility. And I mean, this is a one-off right throughout Australia. The local community are always incredibly supportive. They realise the great work that's done by the Flying Doctor service and how it's such an essential service.
The Outback Car Trek started back in 1990. We looked around for a charity that, like us, would devote its time to helping the people of the Outback, and the Royal Flying Doctor Service was an absolute no-brainer as a charity of choice. The Outback Car Trek is an event for predominantly older model two-wheel drive cars that takes people away from the capital cities out into the bush where they can meet and mix and mingle with people from all walks of life and have an extraordinary amount of fun driving roads they would never normally drive along. And there are some amazing characters. We got people from scientists to school teachers, from journalists to janitors, from clerks to CEOs, everybody you can think of. And in the middle of all of that is a range of personalities that just makes the event so much fun, so generous, so gregarious, and so adventuresome. It's an absolute treasure to be able to work with them each year to raise money for Australia's most trusted charity. We did a survey only a few days ago and we found that the average trekker comes along on 13 events, so trekking gets in your blood. Since 1990 we've had 32 treks, and over those 32 treks we've raised $32.5 million for charity. On the Outback Car Trek 2022, on our first trek back from the COVID impact of the last few years, we raised $1,005,000 for the Flying Doctor service.
The Silver City Bush Treadless commenced in 1998 from me cycling from Adelaide to Perth. I could only find 3 other people from Broken Hill to go to White Cliffs. So then I kindly invited 80 odd people, and that's when it commenced. So that's all of those years ago, and this one that we just finished was the 26th ride. The youngest was 46, I think, and then the eldest was believe it, but 87. When I reached 500,000, I was so excited to say 500,000, but now we're over 700, nearly 800 odd thousand so far. So it'd be great if I can match up and say 1 million, won't it?
RFDS Friends in the UK was formed in 2003. Its purpose purely is to raise funds in the UK for a remittance to Royal Flying Doctor Service in Australia. His Royal Highness is a fantastic supporter of the Royal Flying Doctor Service. He sees it as a fantastic facility for remote Australians, and when he takes on patronage of charitable work, he actually takes it seriously, and whenever he is able to get involved with an activity, he does. When the charity first started up, they managed to raise about £6 million in that first sort of year or two, and that amount of money allowed us to encourage the naming of the plane, the Friends in the UK, and it was great that His Royal Highness was able to do that in Longreach on one of his visits to Australia.
The group's been going since the early 2000s and started off by selling raffles. It slowly built up and started doing bigger things. They started up the recycling process in New South Wales, so the return and earn was given to us. Over the period up until COVID closed us, we donated more than $100,000.
You know, but when you're banking your few hundred, few thousand every week, it all adds up.
Nobody knocks the Flying Doctor. The Royal Flying Doctor receives good support from all the people that I know in this town.
A lot of people that have only got $1 will give you their last dollar.
We have a small hospital, but that small hospital is not equipped to deal with major problems. A lot of older people that live here, to retain their independence, are encouraged by the fact that if they have a medical emergency, they will be flown to a bigger hospital very quickly. They are really, really essential here.
Well, on 2 occasions the Flying Doctor had assisted my family. On the last occasion, it gave me life, and that's pretty important to me. I'm still here, I'm still alive, and that's due to a flight with the Flying Doctor Service. So that's pretty strong motivation to support them. The most I can do is to leave them a bequest in my will, and I hope many other people will do the same.
Yes, there are many ways to donate to a charity. Obviously, there's monthly donations that anyone can make. But I recently found out that with the Royal Flying Doctor Service, they're also doing something called the Oceans to Outback. So I've decided to run 100 kilometres during the month of October with the hope of donating more money to the service.
Word of mouth is better than a newspaper. And they all tell their stories about how saved their baby, saved this, saved their grandchild. So it's our security blanket for us aged ones, because we know that if we get really sick, they're going to come in and take us to where we need to go.
I've been transported on it. They took me in, operated, and I woke up in hospital still alive.
My twin sister was in a terrible car accident when we were 17, and if it wasn't for the Flying Doctor and their transport of Hannah through to the RA in Adelaide, that essentially we wouldn't have her today. So we're just under 1 million acres, so we've had several retrievals out. And yeah, hearing that plane come in, I can tell you, is enough to give you the goosebumps. You just know, you're forever grateful because, yeah, it sustains us. Yeah, we're safe.
I woke up one morning and I was tingly all over, pins and needles. I was rushed off to the hospital and the specialist took one look and she said, "We've got to get you to Sydney." And the Flying Doctor was called in from Dubbo. I had 4 heart bypasses and I'm here today because of the Flying Doctor Service.
I chose Flying Doctor because we cannot do without the flying doctor when we're out on the isolation. We have had to use them sadly twice, and now those cyclists from the cities have understood how we're desperate for keep the flying doctor flying.
It's fantastic work you do. You continue to reinforce the wonderful profile that the Flying Doctor Service has in Australia, and the people over here regard it extremely highly.
It's not just the people in isolation in the outback. The Flying Doctor Service is something that all Australians should be supporting.
There are always people in the outback who say to us quite simply that they'd be lost without the flying doctor, and there are always trekkers that want to go out of their way to make sure that the flying doctor is able to continue providing the finest care to the farthest corner.